Hello, my name is Dr. Milton Mills. I'm here on behalf of Gilead Medical Group. I have no relationship whatsoever to the pharmaceutical company. I work as an internal medicine and critical care physician in the D.C. metro area, and so I practice both outpatient and hospital-based medicine. I actually came here this morning to call out the racism that is inherent in the U.S. dietary guidelines, but then as I got to look at this committee, I suddenly understood why it's such an intractable problem. This committee bears no relationship to the general makeup of the American populace, and whoever put it together is clearly still practicing the optics of tokenism. Now, that is not a attack on any of you as individuals, because I'm sure you're all very accomplished and very sincere, but it is outrageous to have a committee that does not reflect the American population. And as non-minority members of this committee, I should think you would be embarrassed looking around this table. But anyway, I want to talk about the health profiles of communities of color, which, as we know, are generally much worse than the general population. And why is that? It has to do with the guidelines coming out of this committee. I was co-author on a paper published in 1999 called Racial Bias in U.S. Dietary Guidelines, 2 parts. I would encourage you to look it up and read it. But I have actually seen illness caused by your guidelines. As people have already mentioned, the vast majority of people of color in this country are intolerant of the lactose that's in milk. Yet, because they think they have to eat this stuff, they go out, eat it, get sick, and think that they have some sort of intestinal problem. But in fact, when I encourage them to stop eating dairy, their problems cleared up. And so it's really outrageous to encourage people to eat foods we know will make them sick, particularly when the #1 reason advanced for dairy foods is its calcium content, but African American women are genetically protected against getting osteoporosis, so we're making them sick for no good reason. People who trash carbs left, right, and center here and never mention glycemic index. Whole food carbs that have their fiber are excellent. The ones that have their fiber removed, those are the problems. It's not carbs, it's the processed carbs. And lastly, there is no scientific or nutritional reason for people to be consuming dairy products. We have no more reason to suck on the teats of a cow than we have to suck on the breasts of a postpartum weasel. And we've already talked about the hormone content that creates excess disease, such as prostate cancer, breast cancer. I tell people, as far as the nutrients contained in dairy foods, eating dairy products for the nutrients is equivalent to inhaling cigarette smoke for its oxygen content. It's not a good idea. So I want to encourage you, get the racism out, get the dairy out. Please do your job. Thank you.
Hallelujah, guys. I'm excited to come your way once again. I'm here with my elder called Issa. I'm here with my elder Issa. He's a herbalist, and I mean, you saw it already. Him trying to take some herbs to heal some diseases. And I don't want to talk much. I don't want to do much talking. I'm going to hand over to my elder so that he explains what he was plugging and what he's going to use it for, and the diseases and the advantages of using herbs and taking herbs. So, elder, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm excited that I got to meet you this morning. And I also bless you for the humble spirit that you didn't reject me when I said I wanted to put you on camera, but you warmly embraced it so that our brothers and sisters can also learn and use the herbs. Yes. So you just look into the camera and just you tell us what we were.
This leaf.
Please speak up small. So.
This leaf, if a woman born a baby and the breast milk is not coming.
Okay, you can say it in the camera.
And the breast milk is not coming.
Okay.
We can take this leaf and make a soup for her.
Okay.
If she eat it, the milk will come.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Okay, so what elder is saying that this particular leaf that he was plugging, that we saw him earlier plugging, is for when a woman gives birth, when a woman put to bed and the breast milk, she's not producing enough milk, or they prepare soup with this leaf, and she's going to be able to produce a lot of breast milk. Wow, this is amazing. What I know is palm nut soup. That if you take a lot of palm nut soup,
it's difficult from that one. It's
powerful.
powerful.
Oh wow, so it's difficult from palm nut soup.
Yes.
Wow.
and early too.
This comes early.
Yeah.
So how soon would this produce the milk?
Maybe around 15 minutes time you can see the milk come.
Wow.
Maybe 1 hour or early.
Wow.
Yes.
So it takes effect from 15 minutes.
Yes.
You guys got to check this out. What's the name of this herb?
I don't know the name, but my grandfather showed me this leaf.
Oh, wow.
And then if something is worrying a woman, maybe
Can you speak?
if something is worrying a woman.
So let's
maybe-
take it back. You see, your grandfather showed you this leaf?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Mhm. And if something is...
Yes, like maybe you are getting this tea, a fibroid, it's worrying you. We can take this tea.
What?
This leaf, and if you cook it with a soap, you can use.
So he's saying, when you take this leaf and mix it with soup, you cook it with soup, and the woman takes in, if there's fibroid, there's anything worrying her womb, it's going to come out.
Yes.
How soon is that?
It will wash everything.
This
This leaf.
wow, this leaf will wash everything in your womb, and whether it be fibroid, any type of growth, everything is coming
Or
out.
if she misses, or what do you call it?
Miscarriage,
Yes. No, not miscarriage.
menses,
Messes.
misses her
Yes.
menses.
Messes.
Wow.
It's not coming. If you use it with, we have some fish. We mix with this one, and you use it with a soup. Now,
This is mind blowing. This is mind blowing. Listen. Let me try and explain this. It says, if your menses is not flowing, he's gonna miss this leaf, which sadly we don't know the name, so I can't give you the name. The only how you can get this leaf is you call my elder Isa. That's the only how you're gonna, because I don't know the name, but I don't know if I bring it close, anybody is gonna identify this leaf. I don't know anybody knows this leaf. He says that when you miss this leaf, I'm gonna take his number. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna take his number for you. When you miss this leaf with a particular kind of fish, a type of fish, this leaf is going to be released if anybody is suffering any menstrual disorder. That's mind blowing.
yes.
What else can the leaf do? This is a super leaf. This is a super leaf.
So we have different types of leaves.
Okay.
But now this one, I'm coming to find it for my sister.
Oh wow.
That's the problem.
Oh, so what is your sister suffering?
She's breast milk coming.
Oh, so the sister just gave birth, and the sister just gave birth, and he decided to come plug this particular leaf that we all don't know the name, and he's going to use it for the sister, so the sister can produce breast milk. This is mind blowing. This mind blowing, and it's not just breast milk. It's talking about it can take out fibroid, whatever growth is that is in the womb of the womb. It can take it out. It can wipe it out. It can also correct any menstrual disorder. It can also correct any menstrual disorder with a particular fish. I don't know that. Do you know the name of the fish?
It's called kaku.
Kaku. That's a whale.
The name of the fish.
That's a salted whale.
Yes,
Yeah.
kaku.
It's called kako, and we in Ghana know what kako is, and in the African countries, but most of you in the diaspora don't know what kako is. Kako is basically salted whale, not a shark. Is it a shark or a whale? A whale, yeah, a salted whale. Come on. You gotta come see Baba. You gotta come see our elder Isa. You gotta come see him for whether anything with the womb. And he's saying there are so many leaves that works for different. Okay, so many leaves works for different type of sickness. But I wanted to ask this. So this is not the only leaf you know.
Yes.
You know other leaves.
Yes.
So how would you compare this leaf to orthodox medicine?
I don't know. Yes, this is fine for
This is better
Yes, this is better.
than all these foreign tablets.
Yes.
This is way better.
No any injection, no any
Side effects.
side effect. No.
No side effects, no injection. This is the real deal. This is a real deal. But does this have any side effects?
No.
Maybe somebody will be too scared to say, for me, with the herbs, when I take these herbs, I'm not able to.
You just cook a soup.
Wow.
A soup. You eat
Wow.
it. Finish.
Wow.
Only 1 day.
One
day.
Come on. He says, there's the part that gets me. He says, after 15 minutes, it starts taking effect. After 15, what if somebody can't get pregnant?
Yes, we have some leaves, but I can't
It's not here. So he's saying, if you're a woman and you can't get pregnant too, if you're trying to get a baby, and you're trying to get pregnant and you're not able to conceive, he has particular leaves that is going to take care of that. Now this is biblical. That's one beauty. That's one amazing thing about all this. Because are you a Muslim?
Yeah, I'm a Muslim.
He's a Muslim. I'm a believer. I wouldn't say even I'm a Christian. I'm a believer.
Yes.
So I'm a believer. He's a Muslim, and I know we have one thing in common. We have the book of Leviticus in common.
Yes.
Because I know Muslims believe in the books of Moses.
Yes.
Without that, you cannot be a Muslim.
Yes.
Without believing the books of Moses and the prophets, you cannot be a Muslim. Yes. So I know we have a common knowledge, and all these things are in Leviticus, teaching us to eat the herbs, and the herbs are healing, and that's what my elder is saying right now. This is healing, better than any orthodox medicine. And we did right after 15 minutes it start taking effect. I don't know, but do you have any last words for our brothers and sisters?
Yes, last word is this leaf.
Okay, he's showing another leaf.
This one.
Okay.
If you have born a baby and then the baby is so many dull, if you take this leaf and cook it and then you bath the baby, it will be strong. The baby will be strong.
Wait.
Yes.
My elder is just plugged another leaf and he's telling us about this leaf. So I want him to say it again, please.
If you have born a child,
This leaf.
Yes, and it's not strong. If we take this leaf and we cook it, we bath with the child, it will be strong. It will be strong very well.
It is mind blowing. Wait. So
If your woman has born a baby
yes.
and the baby is not strong,
So when you say strong, is it like in the bones or
yes, in the bones,
in the
not
bones?
strong, yes, then you are saying that she is dull. Anytime it's dull, you take this leaf and you bath with the child, you'll be strong and you'll be starting acting.
So you just bath with the
Yes, 7 days.
7. Come on now. He just said 7 days. 7, the number 7, the perfect number.
Yes.
He rested on he created everything and rested on the 7th and called the 7th day the Sabbath. And he said in 7 days, when you bathe a baby that is dull, that is not active, basically, when the
Yes.
baby is not active, in 7 days, your baby, your child, I don't know if you're out there and you have a child that is dull, you have a child that's not active. I want to come your way with this. Listen, send me a message, send me a direct message, send me an inbox, get me your number. I'll get our elder's number to you. You communicate with him directly, not even through me. You talk to him because this is mind blowing. Because I know a lot of babies that are sick and they give them I don't even remember the diseases. They give them strange diseases. Children of these days that
Yes.
they are this, they are that, they are that, they are that. So this can cure all of that.
By the power of God.
So this is the part that is tricky for me. So I think this leaf
Yes.
has spiritual component to it.
Yes.
So this is not just an ordinary leaf. It has spiritual. It's
Power.
there's a spirit behind the leaf.
Yes.
I did a video a couple of weeks ago, and I was telling them that whenever you eat herbs or you use the herbs,
Yes.
you are receiving life from the tree, you have received
Yes.
got the spirit in it. You believe that?
Yes, I believe that very, very well too.
Wow. Can you say a little bit on it?
This we have used for so many children.
So many children,
So many children.
and they become.
Better.
So can you tell us the process? You just bath with them.
Just bath. You bath the children with the child. If you cook it, then you pour it in a different bucket. Then you wash the baby. Good 7 days, you will see changes.
So when you use this leaf, I'm trying to get all these children diseases that come. They say, it's not coming. It's not coming. I'm trying to get it, but it's not coming. But what our elder is saying, if I remember, I will inject it. But what our elder is saying that when you use this leaf, all that you got to do is to boil this leaf in a pot, pour it in a bucket, and bath the baby for 7 days. And after the 7th day, you're going to see a tremendous change in your baby's life. That's mind blowing. What?
And have some sickness called otry. If you're born a baby, then you say that the baby is coming back, it's making small.
It's what?
The child, then it's coming back, it's making small. Then the body is short.
Malnourishing.
Yes, and then you see that the baby is not big. It's coming down anytime. You don't matter, you won't flow. But if you this way, you see that the child is becoming cover.
Okay, so if your child, but do you still bath with the baby or you eat it?
You bath it with the baby.
So when your child is malnourishing and you use this herb on your child, this is the Bible. It's biblical. I know he uses the Quran, but they use the Bible too.
Yes.
This is the Bible. This is not demonic. This is not occultic. This is not some strange spirit. This is not an evil spirit. This is clean. This is clean. This is spiritual. This is clean. Don't waste your time. Send me an inbox. Contact me, and I'll get you my elder's number, and we would have a conversation. And I'll get your number, right?
Yes, by the power of God, you get it.
Wow. I'm so blessed. I just came from my walk. I saw him plugging the leaves, and I was like, what? Wait a minute. Can I talk to you, elder? And he was so welcoming, and I bless your heart for it. He was so welcoming, and I pray, listen, it's important you start taking herbs serious. Your herbs and vegetables and fruits, don't play with them. It will change your life. Bless you for tuning in once again. I know this is definitely a blessing to you. I know this will change your life. Listen, don't be an enemy to change. The world is changing. We are all getting to know the truth. The truth is coming out whether you like it or not. And the truth is making sure you are with the fruit, you are eating fruit, you are eating vegetables, and you are taking the herbs and seeds. I believe there are some seeds too you have to chew. Yes. And something like that, yeah. So we'll do this from time to time. I'm going to take his number. I'll come your way again. We'll do this from time to time. So every other time we'll handle a disease. Every other time we'll handle. Is that okay?
Yes.
Bless you, bless you, bless you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I know the viewers are also blessed by you. Wow. Bless you.
According to current theories of the evolution of Homo sapiens are felt to be, that is modern humans, to be about 100,000 years old. The earliest known evidence for the use of mammals for their milk is as old as 6,000 years in certain areas of the world. But in Western European countries, it's about 3,000 years that we have good evidence for the use of dairy foods. Human beings, again, according to evolutionary theory, existed for almost 100,000 years before we started using other mammals for their milk. So clearly, we don't need it. And it's really absurd to argue that any mammal needs to drink the milk of another species. That's just absurd on its face. Milk is a secretion that female mammals make that is designed to feed their babies. Nature, God, whoever you want to pull into this conversation, never intended that as adults we would be drinking our own milk, let alone the milk of another species. The way I look at it, I'm sometimes even reluctant to call milk food. I mean, it's a material that we can ingest. In my mind, it's like using some recreational drug. I mean, it's not necessary. Yeah, it's optional. But it's not something that you have to do or that you need to do. And humans do not have to drink cow's milk or goat's milk or sheep's milk, and it doesn't supply any nutrient that we can't get elsewhere in our diet. Worldwide, the vast majority of humans are lactose intolerant, as are essentially all mammals. The sugar that is in mammal's milk is called lactose. But what lactose is, it's what's called a disaccharide, meaning it's two individual sugar molecules that are linked together into one molecule. Our bodies can only absorb single sugar molecules. So in order to be able to absorb lactose, you have to make an enzyme called lactase that actually splits the lactose molecule into its two individual sugars, glucose and galactose. All infant mammals make tons of lactase because, of course, they have to be able to absorb the lactose in their mother's milk. But as mammals mature and are weaned, their bodies stop making this enzyme. And it makes sense because enzymes are very large proteins that require a lot of intracellular machinery to actually create and then position in the digestive tract so that they can do their function. It makes no sense to continue making an enzyme that you really don't need. And since all mammals except humans stop drinking milk once they're weaned, all mammals stop making lactase as they become mature. That is also true for the vast majority of people around the world. The only people who have become what's called lactase persisters, and that is they have a genetic mutation that causes them to continue making lactase throughout their lifetime, are people who hail from an area in the world where the practice of dairying, using the milk of other mammals for food, was common. In Northern European countries, there's a very high percentage of people who are lactase persisters. And there's also certain East African tribes that have traditionally had a sort of pastoral economy where they used milk, and they are also lactase persisters. But everybody else, just floridly lactose intolerant. And that's really emphasized in this country when you look at people of color. The statistics are as follows. 95% of Asians are lactose intolerant. 74% of African Americans, 70% to 73% of Native Americans, and 53% of Hispanic Americans are lactose intolerant, as opposed to Caucasian Americans, where lactose intolerance is only about 33%. Amongst African Americans, if there hadn't been the sort of rapes of slave women that caused the mixing of European genes with West African genes, prevalence of lactose intolerance would be even higher than the 74%. But clearly, the majority of people of color are lactose intolerant. Again, that's true around the world. And that is why I helped co-author a paper where I talked about institutional racism in the U.S. dietary guidelines, because the U.S. dietary guidelines, which are put out by the Department of Agriculture, not Health and Human Services, recommends that people eat dairy foods. And they recommend this knowing that if people of color consume these foods, they're going to get sick. But what's worse is that there really is no benefit to consuming dairy foods. Now, the number one reason dairy foods are touted is supposedly they are the best source of calcium. But the problem is that dairy calcium, in the majority of studies that have been done on it, has not been shown to be protective against osteoporosis, which is weakening of the bones, or against bone fractures, such as hip fractures or vertebral fractures. One or two studies that suggest there may be some benefit, but the vast majority of the studies do not show benefit. And in fact, Harvard Nurses Health studies show that the women who consume the most milk had the highest risk of hip fracture. And if you look worldwide at dairy consumption is highest in those countries that have the highest incidence of osteoporosis and weak bones. So there is no real benefit for consuming dairy foods if your goal is calcium consumption. What's even worse is that whole milk is very high in saturated fat. It has proteins that have been shown to be linked to a number of cancers, and particularly in this country where the cows are artificially impregnated and treated with a variety of hormones, including growth hormone and so forth. The milk and dairy foods tend to be very, very high in estrogens, growth hormone, which increases the level of something called insulin-like growth factor, or IGF. Studies have shown that humans that have higher levels of IGF have a higher risk of the metabolic syndrome, chronic disease, but particularly cancers. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends human babies not be exposed to cow's milk until they are more than a year of age, because there are many, many, many studies showing that early exposure to cow's milk for human infants increases their risk of iron deficiency anemia because of the proteins in the milk, but it also markedly increases their risk of developing type 1 diabetes. And type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune phenomenon where the body attacks the insulin-producing cells in the pancreas and kills them. Part of what happens is babies are born with an incomplete set of digestive enzymes. Proteins are digested by being cleaved by a suite of about 5 different digestive enzymes. If you have all 5 of those enzymes, you can then take any protein and break it down into all of its individual amino acids. One of the things that babies are supposed to get from their mothers is passive immunity, meaning that they are supposed to absorb antibodies in the mother's milk so that will help them ward off diseases that their immature immune systems haven't had a chance to react to. And the reason that they're able to do that is because they don't have all of their protein digesting enzymes. So instead of breaking proteins up into individual amino acids, babies break the proteins up into large fragments, and they are able to absorb protein fragments. That allows them to absorb their mother's antibodies intact. And certain genetically susceptible individuals, when they are exposed to bovine serum albumin, it's chopped up into protein fragments that when they're absorbed, the body recognizes this as a non-human protein fragment, and it makes antibodies against those cow's milk protein fragments. In certain instances, again, in these genetically susceptible individuals, if they have these antibodies to the cow's milk protein, if they get certain kinds of infections, those proteins will then attack their insulin producing cells and kill them, and they end up with type 1 diabetes. That's why it's recommended that you don't expose human infants to cow's milk until they have all of their digestive enzymes, and that means they have to be older than a year old. Very good reasons for never exposing your child to cow's milk protein. Then there's also the fact that cow's milk has been associated with exacerbation of problems like asthma and respiratory issues. That may sound odd to people. Well, why would milk cause respiratory problems? Any infant mammal comes into the world with a very immature immune system. So its mother's milk has to do several things. One, stimulate it to grow. Two, also confer passive immunity while the baby's immune system is starting to rev up. But it also stimulates that baby's immune system. And when you think about the way that our respiratory tree keeps itself clean, it's through the production of mucus. Our entire respiratory tree is lined with mucus, which is designed to trap dust, bacteria, fungi, and not permit it to get down into the lungs. And we either cough it up and spit it out, or we swallow it, where the bugs are killed by digestive enzymes. And so one of the things that milk does is it helps rev up the production of mucus. Well, that's fine if you're a baby mammal and you need to get your immune system jump started. But if you are an adult or a child who already has asthma or other respiratory problems like chronic sinusitis, that extra mucus production then causes you to have more asthma exacerbations, makes you more prone to getting respiratory infections and sinusitis. So that's yet another reason to avoid it. And there's also studies that link the consumption of dairy to acne in teenagers. That's probably through overstimulating their immune system, which causes them to have these breakouts. The data on the link between cow's milk and type 1 diabetes in children and iron deficiency anemia is solid and strong. I think that when you actually look at the preponderance of studies, most of them do suggest that there is a link between dairy consumption and ovarian cancer. Now, again, there are some studies that failed to show a link, but there's no study that shows that dairy foods are protective against ovarian cancer. So what you have is the possibility that consuming dairy foods raises the risk for ovarian cancer. And no, the link is not definitive, but there is evidence that there is a causal link. Why should women risk their lives ingesting material they don't need when there's a chance it could cause one of the most lethal cancers that can strike a woman? The vast majority of women who develop ovarian cancer die from it, because by the time they become aware of it, it is already spread and it is very difficult to treat. You have a possible link between the consumption of dairy foods and a very lethal cancer on one hand and no real benefit on the other. So why would you play Russian roulette with your health? So that's, again, a good reason that I think women should avoid consuming dairy foods. In the United States, African American men have more than twice the prevalence of prostate cancer compared to Caucasian men. And when African American men develop prostate cancer, it is more aggressive, it is harder to treat, and it kills us much more quickly and much more often than the varieties that strike white men. There are very strong links between dairy consumption and prostate cancer. My mother named me after her one and only brother, and my uncle died from metastatic prostate cancer. So this is something that hits me, right in the chest. Not only did it kill my uncle, but I have several good friends who've actually died in their 50s from prostate cancer. So this is no joke, and it's nothing to play with. And in fact, if you read the China study, Dr. Colin Campbell showed that dairy protein was strongly linked to liver cancer in children. And it's been linked to a number of other problems, including multiple sclerosis and other issues. So dairy protein, not only is it not necessary, it should be avoided. To suggest that someone should drink milk to get their phosphorus, potassium, and magnesium is like suggesting that someone inhaled cigarette smoke to get oxygen. Yeah, there's oxygen in it, but there's a whole lot of other stuff that will harm you. And the same thing is true for the dairy food. Magnesium, phosphorus, potassium are widely available in all sorts of plant foods that have all sorts of nutrients and phytochemicals and other things that are good for you. You do not need to suck on the teat of a cow to try to get phosphorus. That's just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. What we call vitamin D is a compound that chemically is like 125 dihydroxycalciferol. It is a substance that our bodies will make when we have skin exposed to sunlight. The only reason that hormone started being called a vitamin was because early on the dairy industry began adding it to milk to make the consumption of dairy foods more attractive. So they put it in the milk and then they called it vitamin D. That would be like me putting testosterone in milk and calling it vitamin T. It's not a vitamin, it's a hormone. And it's a hormone, as I said, that all humans make when we have skin exposed to sunlight for significant periods of time. Granted, there is a problem for humans living in more northerly latitudes because of the temperate weather and the longer winters. We tend to be covered up and we tend to be indoors. So we don't get the sun exposure we need to make adequate amounts of the calciferol. But you can get so-called vitamin D supplement. You don't have to drink milk to get it. You can go to your drugstore and get you a little bottle of vitamin D3, take it every day, and you're fine. And or if you are able to be out in the sun where you have your arms and torso exposed for at least a half an hour to an hour a day, depending on the latitude, you'll make your own. You don't need to ingest this unnatural compound just because they poured something in it to try and sucker you into getting it. Big selling point for the dairy industry, and when they try to push their products on people, is that, oh, it has calcium, it has calcium. Studies have shown that when a person drinks a glass of milk, they actually lose more calcium in their urine than they're able to absorb from the glass of milk. There's something called fractional absorption of a nutrient. Humans can only absorb 23 to 24% of the calcium that's in a given amount of milk. So that means that, yeah, you might have 300 milligrams of calcium in a glass of milk, but you're not going to absorb it all. You're only going to absorb somewhere between 17 to 23% of it. And in fact, years ago, there was an attempt by the dairy industry to produce a protein-reduced version of milk in an effort to decrease the amount of calcium loss associated with drinking milk. That product, I don't think, ever made it to market, but it was a definite attempt on their part, and that shows that they recognize that the amount of protein in milk causes problems in terms of calcium balance, because we end up losing more calcium than we can gain. Cows don't drink milk, but there's tons of calcium in their milk. Where does it come from? It comes from the stuff they eat, the green leafy vegetables. If you take a 6-foot human being and take all of the flesh off, just take his skeleton, the entire skeleton in a 6-foot human being will weigh about 25 pounds. A full set of antlers on a mature bull moose weighs between 80 to 85 pounds. And they're made out of solid bone. And the animal produces it within 3 months eating nothing but green plants. There's tons of calcium in plants. It is a giant myth that you can only find calcium in dairy foods. Calcium is widely distributed throughout the plant kingdom and readily available. And it comes along with a whole bunch of other things that are actually healthy for you, as opposed to, protein that damages your body and saturated fat that clogs your arteries and the hormones and the other things that are in dairy foods. So you do not need dairy foods to get your calcium. You can get it directly from the plants, just like every other large mammal on this planet.